due to my personal choice to take a moral stand for medical freedom and personal choice, I will be signing out of service for the last time today. Please, 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 take care of each other. Make sure you all go home at the end of each day.
This is my final sign-off after 22 years of serving the citizens of the state of Washington, being asked to leave because I am dirty. This is the last time you'll hear me in a state patrol car. And Jay Inslee can kiss my ass.
Wow, that's a lot of emotion. They've dedicated their careers to public safety. Jason Rantz is a Seattle radio talk show host. Jason, just first of all, your reaction to that.
Well, I mean, in the case of the latter video you played, that's Trooper LeMay. He's been on my show for several times over the last several months, and I've been following closely his struggle here. These are two people, in this case, who are deeply religious. They have religious convictions against this particular vaccine. They're also, as you heard, doing it for the sake of personal freedoms and medical choice. When you look at not just the troopers, but any of the law enforcement officers who are impacted by this mandate, many of them have told me privately, yeah, I'm vaccinated, but I don't think it's the right of the government to require this as a condition of employment. And that's what we're starting to see a lot of. There's this belief that everyone who's pushing back is unvaccinated. That's just simply not true.
That is fascinating. And that is why I was making such the point about they just want to know, are you or are you not? But then, Jason, I wonder if something else isn't at play. Because when I find out in Chicago that they're not going to foot the bill for the testing after mandating that you go get something else, a vaccine, but they're not going to offer you. It feels like they're negotiating in bad faith. And then they're not going to give you the time to go get that testing. Feels like they're negotiating in bad faith. Like you don't think that they have some tax dollars to be able to support that. It blows my mind.
Yeah, they very clearly have the money to do that. Although I'll say in Seattle, for example, there's no testing option. You're either getting vaccinated or you're going to be fired. And I think that that's the problem here. You're not even given the option in some of these cases. We were told over the last 18 months that all of these folks were heroes. They're frontline workers, essentially, and they're protecting us, and they're doing so at great risk to themselves. Now, last year at this exact time, there was 0% vaccination. Right now, for example, in Seattle and in Washington in general, there's about 80% of the state vaccinated with at least one shot. They're telling us back then it was safer than it is now for these law enforcement officials to do their jobs. That doesn't make sense. And it's not like after they get vaccinated, they're losing all of the PPE that they've been wearing. They still have to wear that.
That's a good point, too.
And so nothing has effectively changed in that regard.
So when we talk about the percentages, the numbers, I don't want to talk about people as percentages, but the numbers of officers who've died of COVID in the country, that is something that people are looking at just in terms of safety here. But that hasn't persisted necessarily as high as it was at one point. So are maybe potentially more getting natural immunity. As you said, you know officers who are vaccinated. They just don't want to talk about it.
Exactly, and I think that's really important to pay attention to. It's certainly true that there have been officers who have died from COVID. It's not necessarily COVID that they caught on the job, which I think is an important distinction here. There's been plenty of studies, including out here in Washington, that show EMS responders to emergencies who are dealing with people who, in some cases, you're not going to be able to even wear your own mask, depending on what you're doing with that individual. And it showed a very little, if not insignificant, amount of transmission of COVID between patient and EMS provider and vice versa. So we have to be honest about what we're doing here. And if we're talking about hundreds or thousands of officers across the country being put out of a job, that has some serious public health implications.
Yeah, more than 300 in your area, Seattle police officers have retired or quit in just the past year. And they are citing anti-police sentiment across the country. And of course, this comes as shooting incidents have spiked by 39% from the same period last year. You already had a cauldron, and now just more flame and gasoline on that.
Yeah, we're in territory we've not been since the 80s as far as how many deployable officers we have. Right now we're at a stage 3 mobilization effort for the Seattle Police Department, which means anyone who is deployable is uniform ready.
Wow.
Because if we need to respond to 911 calls, that detective who right now is maybe working trying to solve a murder case will end up going and responding to 911 calls. Today we expect potentially, depending on what ends up happening with the final numbers when they get reported, but we're expecting about 60, possibly 70 officers who will not have submitted their paperwork and who will be unemployed shortly at a time when I spoke to the police chief just a couple weeks ago, said we need as many people hired right now as possible.
Yeah.
We're about 500 or so shorter than where we need to be.
Unbelievable. Real quickly, the politics of this. Democrat mayor, Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. I mean, do these leaders realize that they are leading their own public into a corner with no one to protect them from being cornered? I mean, if something happens to you in the city of Chicago or Seattle, potentially after people leave their jobs over the fight with these city councils and mayors, I mean, I thought their #1 job was public safety. How do they stay in office?
Yeah, well, I mean, these are cities that are run by folks who have been pushing defund policing. I think Lori Lightfoot has walked that back pretty significantly. I think Mayor Jenny Durkin here in Seattle has walked it back some, but still council members are leaning into the defunding. And what a better way to defund the police when you get them to quit on their own and claim, well, they were selfish. They didn't want to protect the public from COVID, which is, of course, a bogus excuse. But it's a way to do it without having to pass any legislation or any budget cuts. 80% of the budget for the Seattle Police Department is personnel. So you lose a few of those officers, you get closer to that 50% defunding that they promised.
Yeah, and then they trick them by either making the testing nearly impossible on their shifts and not paid for, or like in your city, just don't give them an alternative at all, rather.
Exactly.
Just, this way or the highway. It's a trick. It's not honest negotiation. Jason Rantz, always great to have you in focus. Thank you.